The problem is, I suppose, that it's thought that his mother has gone to Finland. So how on earth do you track her down, even if there is a criminal investigation?
Well, first and foremost, in fact, through the entire investigation, if there is one, the primary concern is the welfare of this young man. That will be absolutely paramount. Any investigation will not be at the forefront of detectives' minds at the moment because, of course, this young man needs to be resettled back into the UK. And I think the key to his welfare, his well-being, any education he might need to catch up on, to be re-socialised, to get a network of friends. We all know how important those things are to teenagers. And I think the key will be a word not often used on television: love. I think the love of his grandmother is going to be absolutely key. And whilst, of course, I speak as an old sweat detective and I'd be itching to get the information from him, interview him, see if any offences are disclosed that we don't even know about, for example, and do all of that, primarily there's a very vulnerable young man here who must be taken care of.
How do police then interview him? Because it's vital they know certain facts without traumatising him further.
Officers will be trained in interviewing vulnerable people, for example, women and girls who are victims of sexual offences, some of which are absolutely horrific. So they're very well trained in that, and they tread this very careful line between eliciting information, evidence, intelligence, and caring for that person as well. So expertly trained, undoubtedly as experienced officers as they have got in this field, will have gone to France, come back with him, and they'll be taking a bit of a back seat at the moment as other people, perhaps social workers, psychologists, doctors and the like, look after Alex's physical and mental well-being.
And how much of a say does Alex have in this situation as to whether or not they should be bringing or investigating criminal investigations against his own mother?
He will be key. Whilst he's 17 at the moment, he's going to be 18 and a fully fledged adult within the next few months. And one thing I would really like Alex to have on his 18th birthday is a publishing deal, because I think his book would be wanted to be read by many, many people when he's ready, if he wants to tell his tale. He may get an advance for that book, it could pay for some driving lessons and maybe a car for him.
Yeah. You thought it all through, actually.
Well, I'm father of three,
absolutely, but of course he doesn't even know, or maybe he's just coming to terms with the fact that he was a missing person and that Interpol were trying to look for him.
Yeah, and that brings forward, I think, a question that needs to be asked of Greater Manchester Police. Just how hard did they look for this young man? We've heard no evidence of officers in the last 6 years going to Spain, going to France. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. We'll have to find out. Just how keen were they? Or did they think he's with his maternal mother and the breach of a guardianship order perhaps is not top of their list of priorities, although many would argue it should have been.
And not just Greater Manchester Police, there was reports that the French police missed a chance to return Alex to the UK because Alex tried to enrol in a school in France but couldn't provide any identity documents. And that appears, according to reports, didn't raise any red flags.
Yes, and so people might say to the school, well, did they do any follow-up inquiries rather than just perhaps turning him around and saying there's no space for you here? All these matters will have to be addressed in the future, but primarily Alex's welfare has got to be absolutely key. And I wish this young man nothing but the very best. If he chooses to go public and write a book, for example, and all of that, I wish him well. Alternatively, if he chooses to remain out of the spotlight for the rest of his entire life, I wish him nothing but the best.
I think we all do
Absolutely.
that. He sounds like quite a remarkable young man because, as far as we know, mostly from the truck driver who picked him up, he didn't feel he was kidnapped. He didn't feel he was locked in. He could have left at any point. That is, so he said. But at some point he decided, I want an education, I want to go to school, and he tried to enrol. And then later he just thought, well, I'm going home to my nan then, I'm going to find her somehow. And then, as we say, the next scene in this drama, as if him trudging, 4 days, was it?
Yeah, 4 days
through the Pyrenees, and it was pouring with rain, and luckily a nice truck driver stopped Luckily, it was a nice person who stopped and thought of him and then took him along to the police station.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful part of this story, that this young man himself, who's also studying but working to fund his studies, saw Alex twice, saw him going in one direction on the road. The driver did a delivery, turned round, saw Alex again and thought, no, this is the middle of the night. I must reach out to this young man. But it already tells us that Alex is clearly courageous, resourceful, determined, knows his own mind, all kind of attributes that should serve him well as he goes through life.
I just wonder, I mean, he obviously had a very close relationship with his grandmother. She is the legal guardian, and she has been looking for him, and she has never given up hope, apparently. But he went away a little boy. He's come back a young man.
Yes.
And that's going to be quite a difficult relationship to negotiate, maybe. Maybe not. Maybe one hug will do it.
I'm sure as she wraps her arms around him, all those years will sort of melt away and they'll have an enormous and hopefully joyous, wonderful catch-up, enjoy Christmas together at Alex's pace. I think that's absolutely key.
She was the first person he wanted to contact.
Yes.
When the truck driver gave him his phone. And he couldn't remember a phone number, so they traced her through Facebook.
Yeah.
So that she was the one he wanted to go home to.
Oh, it sounds like the
just
makings of a
beautiful.
Hollywood film, doesn't
Isn't it? I do hope it works out really well.